Okay, so everyone has been clowning on this show since it was first announced. Yes, including me, but that's mostly because the marketing kind of did it no favors. But I decided that I'm actually going to give it a chance. I gave High Guardian Spice a chance and I found at least 2 things in it I liked. So I decided to check out the first episode. I also took notes. God, I took notes. And you know what? Yeah, this show is worse than I expected, because unlike some people, I actually had hope for some reason. I don't know why. So in that vein, I've decided that I'm going to talk about it. I was going to try and review the season as a whole, but I just felt that I have way too much I want to get out of the way just after seeing the first episode. Enjoy, because I'm about to drag you all with me. I gotta say that if I could only describe the show in one word, it would be insecure. Half the lines that come out of these characters' mouths make me think that the writers were not very confident when writing this show, because it kind of feels like they are trying to overly lampshade things in order to deflect from the reaction they know this show is going to get from people who, yeah, let's admit it, are definitely going to come in ready to over criticize it, but still. Let's take the opening scene. Also, I'd just like to mention that we're told it starts with a murder, but technically it starts with Daphne and all her friends in the shower. And really, I gotta say, lampshading your decision to start your show in the shower is not clever, especially when that's all they talk about. Look at this.
Well, I for one think it's lame.
Agree.
So lame.
The lamest.
Why? I've seen anime that aren't very good that still had better reasons for why the female characters were half naked. It's not clever, and they literally do nothing but try and justify the fact that they start out in a shower scene they didn't need to. And then Velma shows up, and we switch to talking and lampshading the race swapping of the characters. Like I said, it doesn't feel like they were confident in the decisions that were made about the show, so they're like spending the first few minutes trying to justify it. And while we're talking about race swapping, I just gotta say this. I can usually excuse race swaps, and because like it's not that difficult to ignore, but when a character that is usually white goes out of their way to like make jokes at the expense of white people now that they are no longer white, it's really awkward. Like, can we all admit that at least? But hey, at the very least, at the very end of the opening scene, there are 2 deaths. One is Brenda, and the other is my optimism for the show.
Seriously, how long has it been since Daphne had you over to her house?
Since my mom went missing 2 years ago.
Oh, right. That.
Oh my god, you totally forgot! I thought lesbians were good at solving crimes. It's like the one positive stereotype perpetuated by cop shows.
Seriously, why is it that it's always the dialogue? Whenever I watch shows that the internet tells me is bad and I give it a chance to try and see if it's really that bad, it's usually the dialogue that's always the worst part. Because Velma's dialogue is just overly stuffed full of meta humor that isn't funny, and exposition. I can excuse the exposition, they have to tell us this somehow. I can almost excuse it anyway, it could have been delivered better, but the exposition is sandwiched between Velma giving half-baked descriptions of what's happening to her and trying to liken it to TV show and script. Also, at first I thought it was just Velma, but then we get to the funeral for the already dead girl and I found myself thinking it's not just Velma, it's all of them. They are all talking in overly tropey dialogue that isn't funny. Maybe this appeals to whoever they keep making adult animated TV shows for, and that's fine for them, but I just find myself not liking Velma at all because of it. Oh, and remember what I said about exposition being kind of fine because you need to deliver it anyway, even if your delivery is less than ideal? Oh, I didn't say all of that? Well, that's what I was trying to say. Anyway, throw all that out the window, because now the police have pictures of their daughter and the person who is currently a murder suspect being childhood friends. And then if you turn the next page, you immediately go to the part where their daughter is bullying them. Why is this in her file? Why was a visual aid necessary? Okay, I'm gonna be perfectly honest, with the style the show is going for, fine, I guess it's pretty absurdist, so yeah, I can see it, but it bothers me. Yeah, I can't say it doesn't bother me, which is odd because I found myself getting used to the gratuitous violence in this show. Oh yes, there's gratuitous violence in this show, much more than I did, but this one thing is bothering me a lot. Anyway, we move on to Fred's introduction, and everything about it fills me with dread. I mean, this is the first look at his face we see. What am I even supposed to say about that? Like, Fred is the character that is usually described as having almost no character. Even Daphne on other media has things going for her about how they're trying to adapt her. But Fred is like the one that most people will kind of describe as generic, if I'm being honest. And yet somehow they managed to find his personality inside him, scrape it out, and stuff him full of every rich, insecure white teenager trope you can imagine. And you know what? He might actually be my favorite member of Mystery Inc. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he's less annoying than everyone else. Daphne, I kind of just feel nothing towards. Velma is rude because, yeah, we meet her family, and God, her attitude towards her maybe stepmom is just...
Velma, that's not fair. I'm not just a waitress, I'm also
A basic bitch who doesn't even know how to use hashtags?
The show is clearly trying to drum up sympathy for Velma, but it's also making her rude to everyone to completely undermine everything I've already said. Feel like her rudeness is a bit justified if this is what they do in their spare time.
You need a real camera to capture real, unmanufactured moment.
My notes just say fuck, and then under that it says fuck. Okay, now this is something that I really feel I should bring up. There are a lot of things in this show I would probably criticize if it was to pop up in a regular show, but this show is clearly going for a sort of absurdist, reality bending, don't take things too seriously, adult animation style. So I'm going to excuse things like having a funeral at your teen hangout spot, because like my suspension of disbelief is very durable. I've watched a lot of cartoons and a lot of anime. I can ignore a lot of things. So there's a funeral for the dead girl. Velma leaves and we meet Fred, who shows Velma a picture of her dad, and she says,
Damn, Dilf City.
Okay, moving on. We get a flashback to explain why Velma keeps having hallucinations whenever she tries to solve a mystery or even thinks about them. And it turns out her mom was a mystery writer, and apparently they used to have so much fun. But then her mom left. It was a whole thing about Velma solving the mystery of what she's getting for Christmas. So her mom went to get a new Christmas present for her, and then she disappeared. And all that was found were her glasses and a Christmas gift that Velma has vowed to not open until she finds her mom again. So the answer will obviously be in the Christmas gift. If it's not, that will be quite shocking. But like, if the answer is probably, most likely, definitely, I might actually bet money on this in the Christmas gift. And until she opens it and figures out what's inside, that's going to bother me every time I see it from now on. So thanks for that. So anyway, after Velma gives her backstory to Fred, he just deadass says this.
Wow, after hearing that, I not only feel emotionally hooked, I understand the stakes of your journey, Velma.
On a completely unrelated note, I'd like to take this moment out to demand the internet apologize to High Guardian Spice. That is all. Anyway, it's at this point that we're introduced to an original character named Norville. He's annoying. And he's probably doing drugs. I feel like they really made it obvious with how much he talks about it and how much he claims he doesn't like it. Yeah, like, I'm 100% sure he's doing drugs.
Think it has something to do with drugs, which I hate.
Anyway, I don't know why we focus so much on Norville when the show has yet to introduce Shaggy, but whatever. Norville reveals that the dead girl, her name was Brenda, right? Norville reveals that Brenda was actually doing an investigation for him, and he gave her a camera and she claimed to have photographed some evidence. So he believes the camera will have evidence about what happened and why she was killed. Oh, here's something actually praiseworthy in this show. Yeah, I know. I'm actually gonna praise something. I feel like the Sophia's camera clue, where Velma remembers the camera that she doesn't think her stepmom can afford and thinks that it's probably Norville's, is actually a pretty good clue. It's immediately solved, so we never get to dwell on it, but I actually think that is a bit of clever writing. Also, while I'm on a streak of praising the show, the animation, specifically the animations when Velma is getting her hallucinations, which she needs meds for, Velma needs meds for her well-animated hallucinations. Velma goes home, she checks the camera, realizes it's actually a new camera, and after she gets another very well-animated hallucination, her dad talks to her and she finally realizes that she wasn't exactly the most lovable angel, and her flashbacks were kind of embellished to make her look great. You know what? Her mom's eye may be periodically falling out of her face, but I still like her more than every character who's not in a flashback in this show, so yeah. Oh, I should also mention, her stepmom is my second favorite character because she shows a lot of caring for Velma's well-being, way more than her dad does anyway, so I suppose that's a point in her favor. So Velma determines that her mom left not because she tried to solve a mystery, but because she was terrible, and so she throws away the gift. Seriously? Why am I faking shock? I know she's going to gone back and pick it up later. So Velma decides to try and reinvent herself in a sexy way, but that doesn't last long because everyone immediately is like, you're just trying to cover up the fact that you are totally the suspect for a murder, and so there's a bunch of stuff, and then there's gratuitous blood, gore, and violence. Okay, if I'm gonna be honest, I'm just getting used to the fact that this is a part of the show style, so that's not really a criticism. If the style isn't for you, then more power to you, but this wouldn't be the first time I've watched a show whose style I didn't like and stomached it anyway. Anyway, Fred defends her. I don't care. Daphne worries that Velma is trying to steal her boyfriend. I don't care. Twitter is going to jump on this show for getting in the way of the whole Velma is a lesbian kind of confirmation thing because of how much Velma is like clearly into Fred. I don't know, maybe she's just bisexual. Moving on, we go on to the fact that Daphne did drop information about the fact that Fred might be a suspect. So Velma goes to see Norville. Oh yeah, that guy definitely does drugs. So Velma goes to Norville and asks him to drive her to Fred's house. She has some hallucinations that Norville manages to snap her out of by telling her that he actually likes her, which she just constantly laughs off because she thinks he's joking. I can't believe people keep trying to tell me that this Norville guy is supposed to be the show's version of Shaggy. Like, there's no way the Riz Master Shaggy would fumble like this. Anyway, Fred shows up and we get a reveal about why he has Norville's camera. It turns out that he isn't done going through puberty yet, apparently, and so the show is kind of secretive about it, but I'm just gonna come out and say it. Basically, he paid Brenda off, but it's misunderstood because he's being overly angry and scary and dramatic while he's doing it. So when he reaches for his checkbook, he gets shot in both legs by the police who just happened to show up. Okay, if I'm gonna be honest, it was this scene that made Fred my favorite. I can't explain it, it just did. Fred gets shot and arrested even though he tries to defend himself that he didn't kill anyone. And the day is saved until the next episode. Actually, not until the end of this episode. Norville drives Velma home. She has a line that's referencing a story I'm not familiar with, but I'm sure is probably better than this. And then they discover a new dead body in her trash can. This one also with no brain. Okay, so that was the end of the first episode. Velma has accidentally framed Fred for murder. Good on her. Daphne is probably going to be more important in future episodes. Norville keeps getting screen time for some reason. Shaggy and Scooby are nowhere to be seen. And Velma is not a likable character. The attempts to make her sympathetic with her whole outsider, my mom is missing thing. But she's just such an ass to everyone, even the one person who actually likes her in this show. Having watched the first episode, people are absolutely going to flame this show to hell. And I suppose the writers understand that because, like I said, the writing is so insecure. Like, they feel the need to justify every decision they do with attempted lampshading. Like, lampshading opening with a sex scene, lampshading the whole getting arrested, lampshading the fact that they chose to race swap two of the main characters and replace Shaggy with some new guy, lampshading, just lampshades everywhere, so much so that the show is just covered in darkness that I can only once again call insecurity. I don't know, I feel I'd have more respect if they just went with their choices without feeling the need to try and delve into unfunny meta humor to, I don't know, soften the blow for when social media inevitably jumps down their throats. It's going to happen anyway, just try to write a good story anyway. Will I check out the remaining episodes? Well, yeah. Though don't misunderstand, I'm not saying I'm going to check it out because I think it's going to be good. I'm going to check it out because I'm kind of curious to see what else can go very, very wrong. Plus, we still haven't seen Scooby and Shaggy. And yes, I'm going to keep saying that until we see Scooby and Shaggy. And now I'm starting to wonder if we're even going to actually get some crazy person dressed up in a Halloween mask chasing the kids. If this really is an adaptation of Scooby-Doo, it's Scooby-Doo after they've basically drained everything out. Well, I'm not really excited to see Velma assemble these dumbasses into some form of mystery solving team. So, but you know, if episode 2 is different enough, maybe better or worse in a different way, I might make a video about that. So while I've got you here, why don't you hit the like button, tell me your thoughts on this video and the first episode of this show in the comments, and subscribe so that if I do make a second episode, you will be among the first people to know and get to see how much this show is still torturing me. Thank you for your time, and good day.